All right, let's call it to order.
Arnold,
Here.
Beckwith,
Here.
Cheng,
Here.
Farkapisi,
Here.
Kotsinis,
Here.
Linsdau,
Here.
Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we got the flag.
We will in a minute.
I know.
Oh, where is it?
We all have one in our offices, right, that we can look at?
I've got it. There we go.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United
States of America
and
to the republic
Republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all. Wahoo!
Yeah. The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Okay, are there any members from the public here? Anyone who would like to speak in public comment?
I'll say hi. This is Stephen Jacobs.
Hi, Stephen.
I appreciate all the work you guys do. Just
Thank you.
calling in while I'm on the road right now.
We appreciate all that you're doing also.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, is there any correspondence?
No, we don't have any.
All right. Next, we're on to the consent agenda, number 5. Anybody want to remove anything from the consent? I sort of feel like I hear someone talking, but I can't tell what the person's saying.
I think it sounds like background radio or TV.
I think I fixed it. I went in and muted people that maybe didn't have their microphones muted. So go ahead, Joe.
Okay. So does anyone want to take anything off the consent? All right. Then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
That was Anne.
Yeah, sorry.
Gina, it's Joe. I'll second that.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. President's report. Questions, comments, concerns?
Spent a lot of time this week.
Yeah, I went to a bunch of did a bunch of webinars. Anyone else have a report?
This is George. I do. I just want to say that we watched the Story Time with Miss Patty video that the library posted. Loved it.
Cool.
I don't know why, though. It didn't show up under the library's usual YouTube channel.
That's I can answer that question. That's because we only have the rights for the stories that she's reading for a certain amount of time, and so this makes it easier for us to remove those off of social media.
Makes perfect sense.
Anyone else have a report?
I just want to ask, did anybody else attend the ILA Zoom meeting?
The training?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, me too. All right.
Kudos to you two.
Thanks.
Well, there were 750 people on this thing.
Yeah.
Is that the one that's been recorded that we can listen to at another time?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I was e-learning that day. So.
It was crazy. You couldn't see it except for like 6 people, but there were 750 people on the thing.
Yeah.
It was okay. I didn't learn anything new though, but.
Oh no? Okay.
Okay, let's see. Where are we now? Anybody else? Okay, so we're on to Ryan's report.
Any questions about the report?
I thought the range of training that people was doing was
Thanks, Joe.
amazing.
I was going to say that too. I kept scrolling and scrolling and
I
scrolling.
know.
You guys are working hard. Woo.
I
There
think
were some
that's great.
interesting topics too.
Yes, there were.
Yeah.
I think in the director's report, was that where you talked about, or was that in the budget where you talked about the endowment fund?
That was.
I don't think I mentioned it in the director's report, Andrea.
Okay, I just want to know that we're going to talk about it.
It was an email.
Yeah, it's under new business.
Yeah, later.
See.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll wait till then.
Anyone else? Questions?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I'm just noticing exactly how much the e-comic book section in Hoopla has shot up, and some of the other e-media has shot up this year. I think it's a good thing that we're still able to serve our customers, serve our patrons, at least in this limited way while the library is closed.
Yeah, even the people who really say they prefer a paper book are having to improvise with the e-materials. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're on to the budget planning.
Okay. So talking about the budget, there's not really, I can share my screen here. As I said in the memo, unfortunately, the only things that's changed is I've added expenditures to the budget. But once again, this is a work in progress. And the major addition, which I think is important for us to consider, is the idea of getting Wi-Fi hotspots to circulate to the community. There may be some money available for us with that HEROES Act that's being debated in Washington right now. Because my understanding is the HEROES Act, there are a couple categories that help libraries. One of them is the $1.5 billion for the Emergency Connectivity Fund, which includes funding for schools and libraries to provide Wi-Fi hotspots. So that's not reflected in the budget. Obviously, this isn't law. It's got to get through. I'm not sure where it is in the House. It's got to get through the Senate. I think, though, I suspect that Washington will pass something, so we may be eligible for money for something like that. So maybe if we know we can get some money, we can offset it in the budget. A couple of big questions last time about revenue and concerns about revenue. You probably saw since our last meeting that the Lake County Board did, I don't know if it was by a resolution or ordinance, they basically voted to extend the deadline to pay taxes. I think that happened after the board met. The timing is a little bit lost on me. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, it does mean we'll get our revenue later. As you know, we do have accumulated funds to cover us while that revenue is not coming in. But I think the big question that the board had, and I had as well, well, what is that going to look like? Are we going to have people that are not going to pay their property taxes? And if that happens, how does it impact us? Well, I reached out to Lake County, and thanks to the clerk's office and the treasurer's office, they didn't give us necessarily an idea because they're not really sure what's going to happen either. But they did point me to what historical data, and specifically, I looked at the 2008 recession, and I admittedly the economic climate right now is worse than then. I would say. However, what's interesting is when you look at this. So this is during the generally speaking the ballpark when we were experienced that circa 2008 recession, and you see so the fiscal year represents the budget, and then our tax extension for that fiscal year. So this is what basically we levied on the public at that time. You can see the actual tax distribution received. Why is that different? Well, all kinds of reasons. First of all, on one hand, you get additional tax revenue from back taxes, for example, that come in, but that's offset by some other things such as people not paying their taxes or objections or court orders, that type of thing. But as you can see, the difference isn't dramatic. At least it wasn't during the recession of 2008. It doesn't mean that this is going to be what's going to happen with us moving forward, but that's the best I can provide you with right now until we have more information. You can see that although the economy was struggling, our revenues that we get in are not dramatically impacted. And I think that's just because the process, the way it works, just in case the board doesn't understand, what happens when someone doesn't pay their property taxes? Well, there's a I think they call it the tax auction. So someone can bid to have the tax lien. And if someone doesn't end up paying their property taxes, that person can pay property taxes, and then they have the rights to that property. And I think that it has to be a really bad situation where there aren't investors that are going to go and do that. I think, like, generally speaking, when I looked, even in the worst of times, it was only like $5,000 in taxes that weren't being paid, which was pretty remarkable. So, so there's that with the budget and revenue. The other thing I wanted to share with the board is I was in this ILA legislative meeting today, and it was a webinar that they did. And the ILA's representative, our lobbyist in Springfield, was very clear that there will not be a property tax freeze this upcoming year, which really surprised me. And I even asked the question, how can you be so confident with stating this? And he said, listen, there are all kinds of ramifications if the state were to freeze local property taxes. Local governments need that money, and if they don't get it, they're going to look to the state to get the money. So he was very clear and very confident that we won't experience a property tax freeze this upcoming year. And even beyond, he didn't think so. That could obviously change, and there's political pressure, but that's what he told us. So I think at least for the next fiscal year, although I'm certainly concerned about the timing of revenue coming in and losing some of that revenue, and we'll adjust that in the budget accordingly. I think we'll be generally in an okay place with revenue based on what I know right now. That's subject to change, but that's what I can tell the board this evening. So any questions so far? I mean, not a lot has changed with the budget. We're still going to tweak it. We're going to talk about this again at the committee of the whole, but that's where things stand. And I hopefully I've addressed some of the questions that you had a few weeks ago about the budget, specifically the revenue side of things. So do you have any questions at this time?
It's good news.
Yeah, it is good news.
Okay. Okay, we're on to new business, reopening plan.
All right, let's go over the reopening plan. Any other questions about the budget, or are we're moving on?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, let me find it. So I know the board had a chance to read through this, so I won't spend a lot of time presenting this. But what I will say is, as you can see, this is definitely still something that's a work in progress. And one of the things that we realized as a management team last week was that we were really getting bogged down with.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot. I completely apologize. But I wanted to ask a question about the hotspots. Can we back up for a little bit?
Yeah.
So the hotspot, the device itself is like your television or your cell phone. And then the service, how much data people use, is something that you pay for separately. Now, maybe somebody I know very well might have gotten in trouble at work for using her hotspot to watch Netflix overnight in a hotel and used up a lot of data and got in trouble at work. I don't know who this person was. And so I'm aware that if we lend a hotspot, how do we keep from like massive amounts of data?
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
great.
really happy about moving the internal Wi-Fi to the perimeter, because one time I lost internet at home, and I drove my car and parked. This was before I was on the board, and parked next to the library, and I was able to pick up the signal, and it saved me that day. But how do we manage that with? I'm all for the hotspots because there are a lot of young students and people who don't have Wi-Fi,
Right.
or internet of any kind.
Yeah, great question, Andrea. And fortunately, when the providers that, I think, I shouldn't say all of them, but at least a few of the cell phone providers that you're familiar with, T-Mobile, Sprint, those companies, they offer these to libraries, and there is software that controls the that. I don't know exactly how it works, but my understanding is that you can set parameters where someone, only has a certain amount of data, or can only, I think you could even filter somewhat, but I know you can at least control the data that they're able to stream before it shuts off. So that's built in.
The budget includes the device as well as the service.
Yeah. So that 18,000, if we were to get 50 hotspots, it's basically covers the devices and service for a full year for those 50 devices.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry to have backed up everybody.
No, it's a good.
Lost my question as we moved on.
Yeah, and just in terms of we have moved some of the access points already to the side. We tried the front of the parking lot, but apparently the metal siding blocks the signal. But we are able to basically, that whole west parking lot is getting a strong signal. Kevin tested that today. So my next step is to reach out to the village and just make sure that they're comfortable with us promoting the fact that we've extended our Wi-Fi signal into the parking lot and we can advertise it. But I want to jump to that hoop because there's been some reports of some other municipalities having issues with their public libraries advertising that because they worried that it would, cause a disturbance or whatever. I don't think the village is going to have a problem with it, but before we do it, I want to talk to the village. So.
Probably helps that the police are right next door.
Yeah, that I would hope so. Yeah. Other questions before we move on?
Just a comment that I know District 56 already has services like that where they will send Wi-Fi hotspots home with students who don't have internet at home. So we can always piggyback on what they're doing to get some lessons learned to see how they're managing them. The only other question I have about Wi-Fi, have we priced or considered putting an actual outdoor hotspot on some of our outdoor lighting poles?
We have not. I think we wanted to try and see how well it worked without having to invest in additional equipment. That's why we did what we did, because those access points that we have, we're at a point where the public won't be using that part of the library for a while. So, but that's something I'm certainly open to investigating. I don't know if
it's probably overkill. Just wanted to know if you'd looked into it.
Yeah.
Ryan, is this something that we would have done regardless of the pandemic issues?
In terms of moving it's one of those things that honestly has never really come up as a huge issue in terms of, like, I knew that you could get Wi-Fi in the parking lot in some places, but I knew it wasn't particularly strong and it worked in different spots and it didn't work in other spots. So it's not really ever been on my radar, but it certainly is now, because one of the things as you look at this plan, when we talk about essential versus non-essential services that we have, I feel a very essential service that we provide is internet access, and I just don't know when it's going to be safe for us to do that within the physical library. So it's not ideal to tell people come to our parking lot or circulate Wi-Fi hotspots necessarily, but it's better than nothing. So
yeah.
But so getting back to the plan. You'll see that one of the things that the management team was getting bogged down by was that we were working on this plan for like all these phases and really focusing on the big picture. And we realized, okay, we really need to focus on the first phases of this plan, because we can't answer all these questions about where we're going to be 2, 3, 4 months from now. So let's really focus on the here and now. What do we need to do now? And then we can start to fill out this plan. And so when you look at this, that's kind of what you can see. There's more details early on and less as you go through the plan. This isn't exactly it generally is in alignment with the Restore Illinois plan that the governor has out there. It doesn't mean that, okay, Illinois is moving to this phase, so now we're going to move to this phase like the next day. But it's kind of a litmus test for us that if we're in a certain phase, we know that we can move to. If Restore Illinois is in a certain phase, we know we can consider moving to the next phase in our reopening plan. One of the big things we're focused on right now, well, really we're on the first phase. We're really focused on not only getting the building clean, but orientation for our staff, the safety orientation. So our first beta version of that, because we've been working on a draft for a while, will be out. And the first people that will be coming back, we hope to have a circulation team Warren in the next week and a half to clear that backlog of things. And then we'll have a better idea of when we really can start to offer curbside service or contact-free holds, whatever we want to call it, once we get caught up on our work. And that's why we don't have specific dates in here. I know some libraries are saying they're going to do certain things by a certain date, but I just don't want to elevate expectations. What if the numbers look bad and something happens with Restore Illinois and we go backwards? I just, I want to get the information out to the public, but at the same time, I don't want to lock us into a date where we don't have a proper plan in place or a proper amount of equipment, that type of thing. But we'll have that safety plan for staff orientation, which is going to be, I don't want to say rigorous, but it's going to be very comprehensive. It's going to cover really everything from building specific things about the way you should navigate to the building, what's off limits, what's on limits, interactions, how to safely put on masks, the glove use, when you should use gloves, all that kind of stuff is in the plan. So the staff will have to complete the plan before they're even able to come back to the building. People have to have mic clearance before they come to the building. We have been allowing staff, very limited numbers, use the building, but it'll start to ramp up. Tech services will need to come in soon for that phase 2, the ordering and processing materials, for example. So, but the idea, until we get further along in this plan, is to have people work remotely from home. If you don't have to be in the building, I don't want you in the building for a while. Let's see, Noreen, is there anything key that I'm missing about anything in the plan that I should share before we open up the floor to questions? I'm just giving you a real general overview.
No, I think you've covered it, especially the orientation, safety orientation to come back. So looks good.
So I'm sure the board has a lot of questions about this. What questions might you have about these phases, about safety protocols? What questions might you have?
So many unknowns. It's hard to even know what to ask.
I'll start. So I like it in general. I think we're doing a good job of trying to bunch things together where they're supposed to be. I agree that we should have as little staff in the building as possible. If there are functions that can be done remotely, we should continue to do those remotely long after we open our physical doors. The one comment I had was all the way on phase 7, though.
Sure, let me go to phase 7.
And this is where we're mostly open, but not quite open. The study rooms I'm seeing open, but my recommendation is that we limit those to 1 person per room if we can.
And that's in the plan, George.
Okay. The other thing, though, is that I'm not seeing in here, and I'd really like to see some limited form of programming in phase 7, even if we're only doing it in the big AB meeting room and limiting it to the most people we can, or the fewest people we can squeeze in there, basically.
Can I ask a question with regard to that?
Yes.
Won't the meeting rooms be used for quarantining materials that have to sit before we touch them?
Yes. I'm not sure if we need both of them, but that is the plan.
And just something we can do for programming, only because that's one of the big things that people come to our library for. And we can't focus entirely on materials. If there's anything we can do to get programming open in a limited fashion, I'd love to see a way to do it.
And in what phase are you asking for that, George?
7.
In 7.
I don't know, this is Andrea, I don't know if zoning or things allow it. Our staff has probably already thought about it, but our west parking lot, that goes up against the building, even though that side of the building is red, you know, there might be a way to project something onto the side of the building. People can hang out in their cars like a drive-in.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know that anyone has thought of that, Andrea, actually. That's
a cool idea.
Andrea, I love it.
Thinking outside the box.
We sew, 50 sheets together and unfurl them from the top.
To work on that.
Yeah, Joe's got her sewing machine going.
There you go, Joe.
Yes, we just asked for donations of sheets from the community, and I bet we'd get them.
That's hilarious.
I'm writing it down. We'll do some investigation. It really is kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, outside space.
Yeah, because somebody in the library could be doing the program and it could broadcast outside, although it gets dark pretty late this time of year.
Yeah.
And to be abundantly clear, I'm not talking about opening up any phase of or any type of programming in the immediate future. I'm thinking closer to fall, realistically.
Right.
Yeah.
I just got an idea. There might be a warehouse or someplace with a big white wall that would let us use it in their parking lot.
I think the biggest thing in a case like that, the biggest fear for me, really, even as we get into limited walk-in service, is the public restroom situation, because that's the thing that's, we'll have to figure that part out. Like, how often we clean the public restrooms, and if you are having a drive-in, you'd have to have the building open so people can use the restroom. But it is an interesting idea. But that's one of those things I worry about with any time we start to let people in the building, the restroom.
Yeah.
See, that's why you're the director.
Is there any mention of like age, like children in or out, and age limit?
Oh, in terms of, that's one of the things one of the things I should mention about this plan is that there are some things that you're not seeing. We have a kind of like a master version, but there's like so much detail in that that wasn't really, this is more for presentation for the board and also members of the public when it's in the meeting. I know we've talked about that. Noreen, is that one of those things that's a question on the table that we've talked about, or, because I know we've certainly talked about it, because that's a concern of ours as well. And the board has talked about this too in the past. Like, how do you socially distance kids? It's kind of impossible. So,
well, and that's really become very prominent just in the last couple of days on things that are going back and forth between libraries. Some libraries are actually saying that at certain phases they should only have adults. And at certain phases, because one thing is that even when we come in at that limited time, we're not going to have anything for the kids to do as far as manipulatives and toys and things to touch. So does it make sense? And so they're all kind of questioning that right now. And I think it's because some of them are getting a little further along and they're starting to think about, how are we going to handle that if we have kids in and they're running around and stuff like that? Or how do we make sure that the parents understand what's expected with that? Just like in some grocery stores and stuff now, I think that they say you have to have one person per cart, or so it is something that we definitely have to think about. And we are, Catherine, I promise you.
Just one more comment right on that. There was an article in the Tribune just a week or so ago where all of the area's children's museums are asking exactly those same questions. And I know Cole Children's Museum near us is probably the ones we can turn to see how they're planning to reopen and follow their guidelines. But it's not going to be easy, because the whole point of the children's area, our children's area especially, is not go in, pick out a book and leave.
Hands-on, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you get them interested in picking up those books in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what made me think of it is actually the mask PPE required, because like my youngest he's not old enough to even wear a mask. So like they won't. Kids probably won't keep them on anyway, but
yeah,
the real little ones, there's no offering.
Yeah.
Catherine, how old do you think is old enough for a child to keep their mask on?
5.
Oh. Yeah, the I don't know which agency, but pediatrician 2 and under. So I'm not sure above 2 what that would look like.
Yeah.
Maybe 5. I don't know.
We talked
Children
to
dependent.
our superintendent said, you know, because we have a pre-K room, and that's what he was saying, that kindergartners, maybe we could have them keep a mask on, but the little guys, you know, we might even not have a pre-K building kind of program to start with.
Are they talking about, I didn't even think about this. So they're talking about the students wearing masks when they go back to school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
makes, of course. Right.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be fun to watch. Not fun in a good way.
No.
No.
Well, and then, you know, we were talking just this morning in a meeting about the lunchroom, and no, we'll probably all be eating in our classrooms, not in a big lunchroom anymore, and, you know, that kind of thing. So just going to be strange times.
Yeah, I mean, for every organization, I mean, well, libraries, schools, just each phase, there's one tremendous challenge after another. I mean, it's not gonna get easier as we advance in these phases. There'll be new decisions we'll have to face.
Yeah.
But.
Okay, anything else on this?
Thanks for sending that to us, though, Ryan. It's
Yeah.
good to think outside of our norm here.
Well, no, thank you. Good questions and comments. And yeah, please, feedback is appreciated. And once again, this is a very organic document. It's going to change a lot. It's a work in progress, and it's always changing. So any feedback you have is.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Is there any length of time you need to be in a phase and be successful before you move on to the next phase? Like you have to be good in phase 7 for 8 weeks, for example, before you can advance. I don't know. Have we thought through something like that?
I don't think so. Maybe Noreen has different thoughts on this, but like I said, the litmus test is going to be that Restore Illinois plan. So when our region in Illinois is on a certain phase, we'll look at the plan that corresponds. And I don't have that in the plan because, once again, I don't want if the public were to see this to think like, oh, we've moved to Restore Illinois has moved to this phase. Now the library is going to start offering this, because it's not necessarily going to happen quite like that. So I think that's the litmus test, Catherine. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of the way I'll be looking at it.
And won't a lot of it be still dependent on the data?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
And Restore Illinois is dependent on the data. So that's why it's a good, I don't want to tie it directly to that, but it's a good indicator for us to look at.
Any other questions? Okay, we're on to the transfer.
Okay. So the first, there are a couple of transfers that the board will need to discuss this evening. I will share my screen. Just with the agenda. The first transfer, the board will recall that when with the 2019 bonds, the ordinance that you passed established this bond fund. So in order to pay interest on June 15th on our bonds, we have to move money from corporate to bond fund. It's just that simple. It's pro forma, this action the board will need to take. Any questions about that? Concerns?
Do you want the motion now?
There are no questions. Yes, please.
I move that the board approve the transfer of $176,159.03 from the corporate fund to the bond fund.
I'll second it. That's Bonnie.
Discussion? Can we have a roll call, Gina?
Eng.
Aye.
Farkapisi.
Aye.
Sutton.
Aye.
Arnold.
Aye.
Linsdau. I couldn't hear Lynn's though.
Aye.
Thank you. Katsinis,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay. Expendable trust.
So as the board will recall, at the last meeting, there was a discussion on, what should we do in terms of if the board should take action to transfer funds from the expendable trust into the endowment fund. And the question was asked, what has the board historically done? And it turns out that the board has never transferred funds from the expendable trust fund to the endowment fund. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think the board has only been faced with this decision once or twice. And I think, at the time, we were, maybe due to our annual appeals, we knew we would be using that expendable trust funds for other things. But I know that Andrea at the last meeting suggested that the board transfer at least some kind of amount from expendable trust into the endowment fund to, try to continue to grow and support that. I know the counter argument to that would be, is the endowment fund really going to grow during this time period anyway? But that's really up for the board to decide. But historically, the board has not made any transfer of funds, but it doesn't mean that the board couldn't choose to do that this evening.
So there isn't a precedence at this point for that.
Not yet.
Ryan, do you mind putting that sheet of the budget back on the screen, please?
Yeah, sure. The working budget or for next fiscal year?
The latest edition that you just presented.
Sure, of course.
So we're talking about Fund 06. To transfer from that fund into, is the endowment on this same schedule or is not?
Yeah, so you are talking about the if you look at 08 expendable trust, what's weird about this though is that it's the endowment fund actually lives within the expendable trust fund. That's what's confusing about it. So you'd be taking some the part of the expendable trust that isn't the endowment fund and take some money out of that.
Portion.
Yeah. So that's what you're doing here essentially is you're making it restricted to the endowment fund.
Well, just like, and here's why I am suggesting this board, I believe, we were the ones who started the expendable trust. And if we don't put something in it, that's a bad precedent for every board that follows us. Additionally, the endowment fund. But an endowment fund is like a savings account or a 401k. You put something in to let it grow. Every year there's going to be excuse. And if you don't put something in, you will always have nothing or whatever, was started by the other people. So I feel very strongly that we should put something in to start the ball rolling and do it every year. So every board that follows us, I think we didn't do it last year because somehow it didn't get on the agenda and we missed it. But we started the endowment fund. We've got to make it become what it was intended to be.
I think Jennifer has the most experience in not-for-profits and endowments of this type. Jennifer, do you have any advice for us?
I do have a couple of questions. So I guess the only confusion I got when I asked Ryan to put up this sheet again on the screen is because I was not seeing the endowment anywhere on this schedule. So I wasn't sure where it resided. So thank you for answering that question, that it lives within the expendable trust, which means that we have a portion of that total that's restricted and a portion which is unrestricted. The reason you would want to restrict those dollars is, as Andrea said, in order to start growing the endowment and also have that for specific uses or for, it restricts in time or for purpose. So we could establish the number of years or timeline that it needs to be restricted or any specific purposes that we want those funds to be transferred into the endowment. The other thing that I wanted to ask a question about was on the special reserves. is there a reason why it cannot be transferred out of the special reserves instead of the expendable trust?
Yeah, there are laws that govern the special reserve fund. And in fact, the board periodically, I think it's by resolution, has to pass a resolution stating the purpose of the special reserve fund. So typically we use the special reserve fund for capital projects. So yeah, it is, limited to the expendable trust fund.
And that special reserve is tax dollars, correct? Whereas expendable trust is donated dollars.
Donations.
That's correct. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Typically the way that we grow the special reserve fund is if there's any money left over at the end of the year in corporate, we'll roll that over into special reserve. And then expendable trust is private funds, which we've raised through annual appeal letter, bingo in the books events, that type of thing.
Okay. So the restricted fund balance, which is, if you don't have your financial statements up, I can share screen with you if you like.
I'll stop my share. Yeah, it would be useful because it is in the financial statements. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share mine. Let's see. I hit the. Okay, just got to get the right screen. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so right here, let me get my highlighter. This restricted fund balance, that means we can't spend it. Here it is, 29,778. So this is not exactly right because we should never have a unrestricted fund balance that's negative, and I didn't catch that, I apologize. So our unrestricted fund balance is the sum of the 27 and the 5, so 22. So right now they're about 50-50 because, there's less in the unrestricted than there is in the restricted because we spent it. But over time, that this 29,000 should grow. That was the intention of it. So, we should put something in there is what I think. No matter how small, we should put something in there every year.
Andrea, what would you consider the something that would be appropriate based on the fund balances you see?
I would put at least $1,000.
And are you proposing to be a standing process year over year?
Right. Every year the board would make a decision on how much they would want to put in there.
I want to point out something if I can. One of the reasons that I wanted us to go the WNPL Legacy Society route, if you recall, we established the Legacy Society, is that people that the Legacy Society is like, I would like people that obviously they have a choice, but if they become members of the Legacy Society, they donate, that those donations could go into the endowment fund. So I think that's also, I don't disagree with Andrea. I think it is good to put some money into the endowment fund because one of my visions for this, and I know the individuals that help us establish it, they, we want this to grow. So 100 years from now, this may not be a lot of money now, but there will be a large sum of money that just based on the interest, the library will be able to do some great things. So the only way you do that is to grow it. So I think does make sense to transfer some money in. And once again, we'll want to correlate the Legacy Society when we get donations from that and look at that and put some of that Legacy Society money into the endowment fund. Hopefully that's how it'll work out. So,
well, I agree with everything that you're saying in general and in most normal years. My only concern is that do we feel sufficiently financially solid to go forward in this time with not knowing where, we don't know for sure about the property taxes. We don't know how much it's going to cost us to clean extra. I'm just worried that I just want to make sure we have plenty to take care of the library when we are ready to open.
But I'm just going to throw this out. I'm not a money person that much, but if moving $1,000 to the expendable trust makes a difference in any of those things, we have bigger problems than that.
Right.
that's how it seems to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does not hurt us short term by transferring $1,000 into the expendable trust. I can confidently say that.
All right.
Further
I don't have
discussion?
any objections.
No objections here.
No, that's fine.
All right, if someone would like to make the motion, I just want to point out that the word expendable is mistyped as expandable. Just don't read unconsciously.
It would be nice to expand it as much as possible.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Well, let's expand it.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion.
I move that we transfer $1,000 from the unrestricted fund balance in the endowment fund to the restricted fund balance in the endowment fund.
Wait.
I second
No,
that.
that's
In the unrestricted, in the expendable trust, right?
Oh, in the expendable trust. You want to? Should I rescind my scratch that one? Sorry, Gina.
another one.
Okay. I move that we transfer $1,000 from the endowment, from the expendable trust to the endowment fund.
Got it.
I'll second that. It was Joe, Gina.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Markapisi,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Linsdau, Linsdau, I cannot hear you. Anne, are you still here?
Is she?
She's on and gesticulating widely at the screen.
On my screen, it shows she's muted.
Okay. Aye.
Thank you, Anne. Joe, Beckwith,
Aye.
ayes have it.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
endowment fund just went over 30,000.
Yeah. All right, we're on to bylaws. We put this on new business because it's our foundational policy and we thought a separate vote was warranted. I move that the board approve policy 1001 bylaws as presented. That was Joe, Gina.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second. Oh.
Go ahead.
Bonnie?
I think it's Bonnie, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Linsdau,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Markapisi,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
ayes have it.
All right, Van.
Okay, the van.
Yeah, so the van. I think it was pretty much all covered in the memo to the board that I sent out last Friday. But I did talk to Roger Ritzman, and long story short, he said that the way to do this is to do a RFP process, because this is one of those situations where for several reasons we could cite, but one of the big ones is the proximity issue. We want to get it from someplace local to get it serviced. He says that if you do an RFP process, you're going to get competitive quotes, and that's really why you did the bidding process anyway. So he suggested that's the way to proceed. So we're looking at getting some RFPs for library vans from the libraries that have done it. We're also contacting the consultant we've used for the bookmobile before that knows a lot about these vehicles and seeing if he can help us with this process. So that's the approach that we want to take, is to do the RFP process. So, which I'm confident, based on the conversations that Noreen has had with several local dealers, will result in us getting a good deal on a library van if the board chooses to fund the library van project. So,
Can I jump in here for just a second? I just wanted to let you know that both the two that were recommended, the Ford Transit and the Mercedes Sprinter. Neither of those will be having an electric until 2022. Some of them are just stopping that, but it wasn't going to happen. Pricing is getting, they're getting closer with very specific. With the Ford Transit, we're looking at $51,510, and that doesn't include some of the incentives that they might still have going on. They had rebates and things like that. The Mercedes is higher, and they have still not come back with a definitive figure on the bulkhead. But we're getting all that, and so we should be ready when we have that format for the RFP.
Good.
Other questions?
I wonder about the optics of driving a Mercedes around town.
I was wondering that too.
No, it's a
I was
Sprinter.
wondering that too.
The optics are that you've got an old commercial van. It doesn't look like a Mercedes. It looks like the, those nondescript white vans you see everywhere? That's what we're talking about.
I think too, with the RFP process, if they're the ones that come back the cheapest, we can say to the public, well, listen, we were looking at getting a Ford Transit, and the Sprinter came in cheaper. So
very good. Yep.
Nobody's going to do that. They're just going to see it and go, oh, wow, the library's got a Mercedes.
The Mercedes might be easier to customize because you can get customization packages.
I'm not saying we don't get the Mercedes. I'm just saying people are going to see it and go, oh, the library's got a Mercedes.
I think about service and
for a bond referendum, you might not want to do that.
That's why we have open meetings.
One of the things that's difficult is that when they're quoting me a 2019 Sprinter because they don't have any of the 2020s that they're available, whereas they're quoting me a 2020 on the Ford Transit.
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading on what's happening in the auto industry because that's what I do. I value auto dealerships, and there's a problem with as many with the inventory of 2019 has to move off the lot, as you know, before 2020 before 2021 comes on the market in August and September. And with everybody at home, dealerships by law in the state of Illinois can only sell by appointment only. And so there's a backup of inventory on those lots. So if you want to wait and buy 2021, you're going to pay a lot. Deals are to be had for 2020s is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to move as quickly as possible. Once again, we don't have it in the budget yet, so we'll have to wait. But yeah, I mean, we want to get this together, so we'll be ready to pounce as soon as we, if we do it, early fiscal year 2020, 2021. So
I think it's good, Eddie. Yeah, I do.
So you'd like a motion for this, Ryan?
Is that on the agenda?
It says it's listed as possible action. Do we need a motion for it?
I think when we did the agenda, Joe, I think I was thinking, well, what if we're ready to buy a van?
Yeah.
And I don't think, Noreen, unless you feel differently, I don't know that we're necessarily going to be in a position to move so fast as to purchase a van.
And if Roger has said that RFP is the way to go, I don't see why we need to make a motion for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the board will have to obviously approve the budget to buy the van.
Right.
But yeah. So
when that time comes. Any other questions or comments on this?
Do we need to move to authorize an RFP?
Well, I would like to share screen and bring up another point. Can I do that?
About the van?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Do you guys see it?
No.
The budget?
There it is.
Okay, so we're right now $360,000 spending more than what we're taking in, expecting to take in. Our expendable trust fund is before, what am I, here I am, our special reserve. Why isn't my thing working? Our special reserve before the drop, 270, is we're at 1,332. So that less 270 is going to be like what is it, George? 1,100 something. So that's going to drop it another, Noreen, 60, 70,000. So we're going to be, unless we cut expenses somewhere else, we're going to be 400 and something. And I'm not saying no to the van. What I'm saying is we got to be really careful because we're getting really low on funds.
Hey, Andrea, just to be clear, the van is included in the budget. That's reflected.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that's already in there. And in fact, I think I'm trying to find where it is in the department sheets.
You want me to share again?
Yeah. So we've got it. I think we've got it well over budget. We'll be able to save some money because we've got it in there right now for 125,000, which is not what we're going to pay for it. So we've well over budgeted. So we'll be able to get that down.
Great.
We're closer to 50,000, 50 to 55,000.
Okay. I'm relieved.
Okay, so we're done, right?
With that, yeah.
And E was just a placeholder, which we don't need, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that was just in case a need presented itself. But we're fine. So.
All right, items for June.
Did we talk about the item F, fiscal year 1920 budget changes?
Wait, where are you?
After the ban.
Yeah, Gina, that was that was a placeholder just to, if a situation had presented itself where we needed to like a COVID-19 response, but we're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any items for June regular or committee of the whole?
Just a reminder to do the annual review.
Right. Okay. So,
and I talked about that earlier.
Yeah. Bonnie and I talked about this a little bit today, and I talked about it with Ryan. And if you're okay with it, George, I have to go there I'll go to the library and get the binder because I have to get the one for the board self-evaluation too. And Bonnie and I thought that since we live near one another, maybe she and I will help her do it this time so that we can, literally we can put it in each other's mailbox and stay distance, and then we won't have to worry about schlepping it all over town. Are you good with that, George?
No objections.
Okay. So I'm going to pick it up in the next few days and we'll get on it.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, and Catherine, I was wondering about what you want to do about policies and doing the policies on a 4-year schedule. How do you want to work on that? Do you want me to help you, or are you doing it?
I can take a first crack at it, and then I will probably need some help.
And then we'll collaborate. Okay, that works. That'll be great. Anybody else have anything?
I had a question for Andrea. Andrea, at one point we had talked about doing 2 policies related to wages in May. Do we want to do those for next month?
I thought we were done for the whole year.
Except we always do wage scale right around the budget.
Yeah,
we'll do them. Jennifer and I will do them, right, Jen?
Did I hear somebody answer? I couldn't hear.
She gave a thumbs up.
Yeah, that's the only one left in the 2000s, I think.
Yeah, till you add them on. I just want to say, Ryan, I read the letter from the bookkeepers and board. The bookkeepers are giving us a contract for another 3 years, which, we can always cancel at any time. There's no change from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 2021, and modest increases after that. So unless anyone has any objection, I will sign it. And Ryan, I couldn't sign it today because we got an update to Adobe and my signature stamps disappeared. So I got
Okay. Thanks for the update on that.
Or I can sign it in person when I come in to sign checks.
You could do the electronic signature. I was thinking about having Joe sign checks since she has to come to the building anyway to get into the board cabinet.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Is that okay with you, Andrea?
Of course.
Okay.
There goes my outing every, you know.
Listen, I won't. I know
I
this
don't
is
go that many places.
this is a public meeting, but you can, if you need an outing, you can say you're going to the library. I won't tell anybody.
No, but I don't go anywhere. I do it by choice, but you know, when I have to, I have to.
Right.
We're arguing over who gets to go to the library.
To sign checks.
Hey, I'm sure everybody on this call misses our library.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Okay. I miss having a real meeting too. Can I just say that?
Me too.
All right.
We all do.
Anything
I
else?
miss you guys. I miss our patrons.
I know.
Miss the staff. I miss everybody.
Yeah. I've become a bird watcher. How bad is that? I mean, really.
She does have blue buntings though.
Indigo buntings.
Sorry, yeah, indigo buntings.
And Joe's going to buy her own bird feeder now. So, anyway.
Bonnie, we just bought binoculars for the same thing.
It's ridiculous. Baking and birds. That's me.
Oh gosh. All right.
Right.
Any other announcements?
Are there brownies?
Virtual brownies to you, Andrea.
How about a class?
Yeah, I don't like those as much as the other
I
kind.
agree. You don't gain any weight that way, though. Let's look at it that way.
Oh, I'm gaining weight.
All right. Who would like to move to adjourn?
Hey, Joe, but one thing, point of information. No, I just want to say that you know, we're getting ready to launch the summer reading program soon. It'll be before we know it. So we have 2 great videos to promote it in English and Spanish. So I think those will be out on our social media channels soon. So be sure to check those out. But Read to Remember. It's on the screen. So it's kind of a fun theme, and you'll see in the videos what staff did with it. So there's a lot we can do with the theme, and although we're gonna have to do it differently than we had intended, we're still gonna do summer reading, and we want to read. I think 750,000 minutes is our goal.
Mm-hmm.
It should be in here. I should remember that, but
That should be a breeze this year.
hope so.
Yeah,
It's in the box.
Yeah.
We massively exceeded our goal last year.
Mhm.
You're probably upping it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the challenge this year is it's going to be, you know, promotion through social media channels. So it's a little different than people coming into the library, and so we'll see. I'm hoping that people sign up. There's a lot of time for reading these days. So,
By the way, when you said social media, sorry to prolong the meeting, but I wanted to just comment about how proud we all are of Eddie for
Yes.
the award that he got. That was just really fantastic. Fun to read, and he deserves it.
Awesome.
he does deserve it. That's for sure. We're so happy. I'm so thrilled for him, and it's he's just if you saw the article, he's extremely dedicated to the community, and he's the ultimate team player, has a lot of innovative ideas. He's a real superstar on our team, and we're really lucky to have him. So
Yep, that's how I feel.
And he's almost done with his library science degree, I believe.
he is almost done.
Yes. From University of Illinois.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Joe, we know.
Right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
That was
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Miss you
everyone.
all.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you in 2
Bye.
weeks.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.